Mandukya Karika, Pranam Mantra. Om Bhadram Karnevi Shinuyam Deva Bhadram Pashe Makshabhirya Jatra Sthirairange Sustuvagung Sastanuvi Vishema Deva Hitam Yadayu Swasti na Indro Vriddhashava Swasti na Pusha Vishwaveda Swasti nastakshyo Aristanemi Swasti no Brihaspatir Dadhatu Om Shanti 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 Hari Om. We covered up to verse number 41 of the last chapter. We're coming towards the end, so things are now becoming simpler. Just to remind you that Mandukya Karika is all about showing that Atman alone exists. Call it Atman, call it Brahman, call it consciousness, whatever you call. That which is truth, that alone exists. And that truth in the Upanishads is known as Atman or Brahman. Atman, when we see it from our standpoint, Brahman, when we see it from the holistic standpoint, they are one and the same. Atman alone exists. Ocean alone exists. Waves are there. Waves are very much there. But they don't have an independent existence. This is what has been shown in Mandukya Karika, that multiplicity that we see in the waking state, that we see in the dream state, that has become part of our reality. Multiplicity which we consider to be absolutely real, inviolable, in fact do not have an independent existence. My dear listeners, now please try to understand, because most teachers of Vedanta, somehow they mix up things. Advaita Vedanta doesn't say that this pain does not exist. Vedanta says pain exists very much. It is there. It's real. I'm perceiving it. Because if you question this, then your perception itself comes under question. What Mandukya Karika says, what Vedanta says, what Advaita Vedanta says, that it does not have an independent existence of its own. And since it doesn't have an independent existence of its own, my body also doesn't have an independent existence of its own. And worse, mind does not have an independent existence of its own. Whatever is there is actually Atman. And what we perceive as multiplicity is an illusion. Illusion is not the right word, because every time we think of illusion, we generally think of a magician conjuring up something false. No, it's not false. It's Maya. Maya means for all practical purposes, it's real. But it doesn't have an independent existence. If you look at the dualists, in dualism, practically every religion is dualist other than Advaita Vedanta. For them, God is true in extreme cases. God is true. The soul within us is true. And the world, it is true because God created it. Naturally, God cannot create something false. Particularly these Vaishnavites, most of these Vaishnavites, for them, these three things are true. And even if the world is considered to be something inferior, they talk about spirit and God. Those of you who are interested in Christian philosophy, there were lots of great Christian philosophers who tried to show how in their language, in their expression, their words, it's all one. There was Mr. Eckhart, Meister Eckhart. His writings, when you read his writings, you feel as if we are studying Advaita Vedanta. However, the popular Christian traditions, the popular belief that we have in Christianity, won't permit those things. Same with Sufi traditions in Islam. They have this concept of I and my master are one. That's not permitted in Islam. And unless you allow freedom, education is all about freedom. In spirituality, also a kind of education. Unless you allow freedom, unless you let people think and argue and present their views, the system cannot grow. Growth presupposes freedom. Unless there is freedom, there cannot be growth. Mandukya Karika goes one step further just to show whatever we discussed that there are three states, and we have waking, we have dream, and we have deep sleep. Under normal conditions, we would think that waking state is more real than the dream. Mandukya Karika shows logically how waking state is absolutely non-different as far as the state of its reality is concerned with the dream state. Dream state is false, Mandukya Karika shows. And because of the similarity with dream state, waking state is as false. Will you say that comparatively waking state is superior? No. Mandukya Karika decisively proves that waking state in no way is superior to the dream. Not only that, dream is not even dependent on the waking state. Susupti is, of course, easy to explain. And what the Upanishads say, what Vedanta says, that these three are actually states of Atman. It's Atman, it conjures of those things. The- and it is counterintuitive. We were having a discussion with some of my brother monks, and I brought up this topic that see how Vedanta is counterintuitive, just like quantum physics. Now, one of my brother monks, he pointed out, it's such a wonderful thing. I mean, this is what happens. That's why discussion is very important. And if you people are interested, truly interested in learning spirituality, I'll suggest that you form a group. You can take help of our YouTube channel, form a group, and have discussions. Unless you have discussions, your horizons will not expand. Anyway, so my friend said beautifully, now why quantum physics? The whole of science is counterintuitive. And naturally, we got alert. And there was a discussion. He said, the most simple thing, first things that we learn in physics, Newton's laws of motion. Newton's first law of motion. Everything continues to be in a state of straight motion or rest unless it is impelled by some external force. And so it's so counterintuitive. He says, now of course it's true. We know that a ball is rolling in cricket and then it stops. Now naturally anyone will say that it's because of friction. True. because we have been taught in our schools this thing. Otherwise, it's extremely counterintuitive. A bird, a bird is perching gently, silently, inert, like a stone. You might have seen some of those birds which mingle with the color of the landscape. For example, parrots. A parrot is absolutely green with no red ring or no other color. It sits in a tree and you cannot make out that there's a bird. And suddenly it flies up. You feel as if something has come out of nothing. And Newton says that it will continue its state of rest. It's counterintuitive. Don't want to believe it. Because you see that things which are in motion, they stop, and things that are at rest go into motion. Now, then we are trained to think since our childhood that according to Newton's that, similarly, sun rises in the east. Physics says no, it's the other way around. It's counterintuitive. And that is what made me think. Let's see, truly speaking, entire system of education is counterintuitive. Entire system is counterintuitive. You are born in a system, you grow up with that system, and because you are growing up with this system, you become one with it, you get identified with it, and you start taking that to be true. And suddenly comes some kind of education. It brings your glass house, reaches up to you, changes your feeling, and your perception starts changing. And now you grow up under a particular system, and with time, you laugh at yourself with the ignorance that you are born under. You are in a society, you are in a family where there was a certain kind of ignorance, and now suddenly, because of your exposure to some kind of education, your perception changes, your outlook changes, and now you belong to that. And that's why Europeans, when they discovered science, when they started taking strides in science, they started laughing at us, we Indians. And well, to a great extent, they were correct. Not fully. Absolutely the same thing happens in Vedanta, more so in religion. Those of you who might have studied Swami Vivekananda, particularly his book Lectures from Colombo to Almora, you'll see how Swami Vivekananda repeatedly compares the Western world's approach towards religion and India's approach towards religion. Here you find that the highest philosophy, highest spiritual truth is even with an ordinary farmer. This is not to demean the farmers, but you go and ask anybody, anyone who has been educated in the Western system of education will say that anyone who has not learned the proper things, proper subjects, one who has not gone through the rigors of education, he is not to be trusted. But as far as philosophy is concerned, Swami Vivekananda says that even the most uneducated, by uneducated he meant under the Western education system, farmer of India has more understanding of religion than the great professors of Western universities. Actually, it's a fact. Indeed, it's a fact. Because true religion is counterintuitive. It's a system of education. We Indians, we have been brought up under this system, so we know. Once, you know, there's a there are people of particular religion, and you can guess who, and they keep on attacking us, and we have lots of comments coming. Most times I delete them. They will be attacking Hindu philosophy, Hindu system. Of course, they understand nothing. There is also a preacher who has run away from India, and he goes on bringing conjures up arguments. So one fellow has written something like that. I told that, look, If you had so much of understanding, you would have been born a Hindu. I didn't mean to insult him, it's a fact. Unless you are born in the Hindu system of thought, you cannot understand Vedanta. To understand Vedanta, you have to you have to drink the milk of your mother who has been brought up under Hindu traditions. When Swami Vivekananda went to preach Vedanta to America, how much he succeeded? Not much. Some people were influenced, no doubt about it. What about Vedanta being preached in America these days? Nothing. It doesn't make any impact. Buddhism makes more impact because Buddhism is a highly simplistic religion. Highly simple. It's a very small branch. It's just like a drop of Hindu religion. It's a very simple thing. Just take our yoga philosophy, apply some cosmetic changes here and there, it becomes Buddhism. And yoga is not even treated as a true philosophy in the Indian system. I don't mean to criticize it, I'm just stating a fact. Unless you have grown up in this system, it will be very difficult for you to appreciate this because Vedanta, like science, is counterintuitive. Other religions are not. Because in case of other religions, most things that you hear, they are something that you see every day. Duality. Even a cow knows that cow is separate from the grass, and that's why the cow moves towards the grass to take it. The cow knows that its calf is separate from it. So when a calf is born, it goes and licks the calf. What's so big? What's so big in this knowledge that I am separate from the world? What is so great about telling that I and my God, we are different, and my God is my master? Nothing. But when you say that I and my Father in heaven are one, it becomes counterintuitive. Do we mean to say that truth has to be counterintuitive? No, truth doesn't have to be counterintuitive. For example, we all know that a river flows downward. Water always flows downward. It finds its level. Is that truth? It's not even counterintuitive because everybody knows. However, some truths are counterintuitive. And simply because it's counterintuitive, it doesn't mean that it's not true. This is what Mandukya Karika has been telling us. And from this point, this verse number 41, which we discussed the previous, it said that when we have some kind of miscomprehension during the waking state, for example, when you're walking in semi darkness, you see a rope and you take it for snake, or you see a snake and you take it for a rope. There is miscomprehension, it can always be there. Now, the way we have miscomprehension in the waking state, just like that we have miscomprehension in the dream state. And the way we think that dream state is unreal, just like that waking state is actually unreal. And we discussed it in detail, so we are not repeating it. We go to the next verse, number 42, where 42 onward, Mandukya Karika, our revered Gaudapada, he now indirectly answers to the allegation that, okay, fine, if the Veda and the Upanishads, these be taken as true, because ultimately, whatever scriptures you may follow, whether you follow the Gita, the Bhagavatam, Ramayana, whatever you follow, ultimately the spiritual truths go back to the Veda and the Upanishads. Ved, by when we use the word Ved, it means Ved, the book. And when we say four Vedas or simply Vedas, they mean the four Vedas. Actually, they are same. The right word is Ved, not the Vedas, but we use it interchangeably. So when you whatever you learn in the Vedas and the Upanishads, that's the ultimate truth. And those very books are talking about creation. Those very books are talking about multiplicity. Even those books are talking about Varnashram Dharma. For example, we have in Purushuktam that the four Varnas, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, were born from God. Those of you who are interested can listen to our talk in Bengali and in English on Purushuktam. Then why we have these things? Very often when we want to explain some scripture, we tend to become selective. But when you explain the scripture, you have to explain in totality. Now, if you say that there is no birth, there is no creation, there is no multiplicity, so why these scriptures talk about this? Now, this is being answered. Upalambhat samacharat asti vastu to vadinam jatistu deshita buddher ajate trasatam sada. Trasatam. Tras in Sanskrit means fear. We are so identified with our individuality. I'm so identified with myself, Swami Samarpanananda, so identified with everything I do that I'm scared of lots of things. I'm scared of death. No, when I say I'm scared of death, actually I'm not scared of death. Generally, I mean, people are scared of death. Why? Why are we scared of death? Because our individuality is identified with the body, so we don't want to die. A person's identification is with his or her children. They do not want their children to die before them. An honest person, a person who is established in dharma, who is practicing dharma, does not want to give up dharma. He feels that it's better to die if he is about to lose his dharma. When the Muslims invaded India, very simple way to convert Hindus into Islam was to cut off their shikha, the tuft of hair that they have on the back of the head, or to force beef into their mouth. And Hindus have been so orthodox that if somebody cut off somebody's tuft, that person was asked to be an outcast. I'll tell you a very interesting story. You'll find it very funny. When I was a kid, maybe 6, 7, 8 years old, I don't remember my age. Somehow I got a piece of blade, which was quite unusual in the village where I grew up. And there was an elder gentleman in village. You move around everywhere. And there was an elderly gentleman, a Brahmin, who had a very small tuft of hair, shikha. And it was afternoon. He was taking an afternoon nap. I silently crept up to him and nearly cut off his shikha, the tuft of hair. And I'm happy that the blade is working. So when that elderly gentleman got up, and somebody pointed, "What happened to your this shikha?" Even otherwise, it was very small one. So naturally, there was a big hue and cry who was cut. And finally, I was caught. I was given a thorough beating. And then the gentleman said that, do you realize that cutting was tuft is equivalent to cutting off his head? Well, it has nothing to do with a Brahmin. Actually, every Hindu should keep tuft. And I keep advising, and whenever I find somebody who is educated and learned and cultured, keeping shikha, I feel proud. It's good. Shikha and Sutra. Sutra is Yagyopavit, the sacred thread. These two things define a Hindu, irrespective of what word or what caste he is. In earlier times, Shudras were not permitted. Now there is no Shudra in India. Nothing. And talking about what happened 3000 years ago and the laws that were given 3000 years, they are no more valid. It's unnecessary. Because in Indian system, in Hindu system, social laws keep changing. So social laws, they don't have any value. They don't have any permanent value. This idea that if somebody takes beef, he loses his religion. Why? Because the person has identified himself with that individuality. My individuality lies with that. At least in earlier times, most Hindus, particularly of North India, they identified themselves with not eating beef. A Hindu woman, till the other day, like if you watch movies that belong even to 70s and 80s, maybe even 90s, I mean, after that, I don't know much because by then I had become a monk. The idea that a Hindu lady, for her chastity was everything. And if somehow she lost her chastity because of the misdeeds of somebody, she felt that she has lost her individuality. And whether she lives or dies, it's same. Rather, death is better than this ignominy. And they would commit suicide. They would go crazy, things like that. This is what happens when some lady is violated. You know the meaning of molested and all. They carry this scar all through their life. Why? Because their individuality lies there. Dear listeners, learn this very simple thing. Never try to hurt the individuality of someone. However, when it comes to our Vedanta, what we are discussing, when it comes to Advaita Vedanta and Mandukya Karika, it says, because we are used to this, we are so used to our individuality, we do not want to give it up. Why? Trasatam. We are scared. I have I have no life outside my individuality. And so the apparent becomes real. Unlike Abrahamic religions, unlike the Vaishnavites and the Shaivites, when I hear that Vaishnavites and Shaivites keep fighting in the south, I laugh because in the north, in this northern part of India, we don't have these problems. These appear so stupid, silly. For them, there is one ready-made coat, and that coat has to fit everybody. Not in Hinduism. According to Hinduism, you always make a coat to suit that person. In management, also, there is this principle that there's a particular post and everybody must fit to that post. And then there are other kind of management, particularly Japanese management, Japanese style of management, where the job is tailor made according to the person, to the individual. Of course, this is a far better kind of management because you take into consideration the individuality of that person. Hinduism. Hinduism is an inclusive religion. Now, whether you call Hinduism by the name of Sanatan Dharma or whatever name you take, it makes no difference. Thing is, Hindu religion. It's not ism the way because other isms follow some individual person, not the Hindu religion. Religion is highly inclusive and highly accommodative. It has something for everybody. So people who are extremely identified with their individuality, who feel that they will be the better dead if they give up something. And you might have seen there are kids. There are kids who are so identified with the playthings that they have. Try to take away those playthings and they feel so sad. They feel heartbroken. They cry piteously. Our individuality is something like that. So, should we apply sledgehammer to those individuality? No, 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 no. Gita says beautifully, na buddhi vedam janiyad ajnanam karma sanginam. People who have a different kind of understanding, different kind of belief, different kind of identification with their individuality, do not break their belief. Be with them, act like them, and from there try to bring them up. That is the quality of a great teacher. A great teacher will never break your beliefs. He will act like you might have seen a doting mother, a very good mother. She does not go on contradicting the kid. She plays along. She plays along. And then slowly from there, she lifts her baby up. This is what religion has to do. And so, personally speaking, nothing, I don't mean any criticism. I don't believe in any organized religion for this reason because so iron cast, so calcified. If I don't fit into it, I am thrown out. I will be crushed. My head has to be separated from my body. How sad. Verse number 42 say, Upalambhat samacharat. Says, wise men teach causality. Wise men means sages. They have taught causality for those who are afraid of non-creation, assert the reality of external objects because they perceive such objects simply because there is perception. The idea is that there are people who believe that I perceive it, so it is true. And because they cling to various social and religious duties. There are people who see certain things. There is this external world, and you make use of those things. Here is a pen. I use that pen for writing. I can see that pen. I make use of it. I'm used to it. And because I'm used to it, I don't want to say that it doesn't exist actually. The fact is that we are scared to let go. Letting go is not that an easy thing. Letting off your belief system, letting go of your individual, it's not an easy thing. So it says that mediocre and dull people spiritually, it does not say, for example, Einstein himself, as far as spirituality is concerned, he was extremely mediocre. He was not letting go of his religious belief, and that's why he came up with ideas like cosmological constant, because he needed to fit science with his belief system. They are attached to their individuality, mediocre people and dull people. So anyone who is identified with his individuality is essentially a mediocre and a dull person. And duality is meant for such people. Duality is meant for the weak. And was their characteristic for them? The apparent is real. That which appears before the eyes is real. And that's why our scriptures teach castes, caste and class and their duties. Varnashram dharma. Now what Mandukya says that if a person is dedicated to scriptural study, for example, you people are listening, and I know of many of your our listeners who have been listening to these talks from number one. And amongst the listeners, I have some committed friends, very good friends, who have been with me for years. And every time they listen to a talk, one thing they say, amazing. Amazing in the sense that it's unbelievable how it's so logical. This is what here Mandukya says, that if a person continues with his or her study, now there's a word there, so there means his and her both. But then it sounds so strange if a person continues with their, so, but when one of my books, Carving a Sky, was being edited by the editor of HarperCollins, and she said that, well, this is the style. This has to be followed. So Carving a Sky has that. So I learned that, and somehow it doesn't suit me. But as people continue with their studying, slowly they realize that, okay, individuality that I have been holding on to is actually false. If you read Swami Vivekananda's works, particularly books like Gyan Yoga and all, Swami Vivekananda repeatedly talks about that we are holding on to our individuality. And the interesting thing is that individuality itself is something apparent, it's not real. Yet we hold on to that and we are scared to let that go. Letting go is not an easy thing. And if you read any of these books on self improvement and power of positive thinking and self growth, etc., they will always talk about letting go. Is it easy to let go? No, it's not. It's easy to talk about closure. There is something, some emotional wound you have, some incident you had, and you say that let there be closure. Time has come for closure. Can there be a closure? It's very difficult. When you say that let there be a closure, basically we mean to say that the poison that is attached with that event, let that go. This scar will always remain. This scar will always show that there was something deep. When you look at a coconut tree and show those marks, you know that there was a big leaf of a coconut tree, of a palm tree there. And there's a scar. The scar doesn't go away. Letting go is so difficult. And then letting go of your individuality is unthinkable, impossible. But what Mandukya says that if you continue with this study, if you continue with this rigors, slowly you will realize. And that is why sacred books like Gita say that perform your duties. So one duty is as good as any other duty, and as one duty is as bad as any other duty, because at the highest level there is no duty. For a jnani, there is no duty. Naiva tasya krite nartho na krite neha kashana. For a jnani, a person who has realized that Atman alone is the truth, for him there is no duty and there is nothing, neither there is any kind of injunction nor there is any kind of prohibition. Scriptures say that do this, and scriptures say don't do this. When they say do this, it's injunction. When they say don't do this, it's prohibition. These things do not apply to a jnani. In fact, theoretically speaking, these things do not apply even to monks. Monks are not bound by the caste duties and class duties and by the injunctions and prohibitions of these scriptures. For example, those of you who are familiar with Christian monasteries, they take the vow of chastity, poverty, obedience. It's a must. If you think of Buddhistic monasteries, they talk about dharmam sharanam gacchami, buddham sharanam gacchami, sangam sharanam gacchami. In the Hindu tradition of the monks, there is no vow. In Ramakrishna Mission monks, there is no vow. You say, I give this up, I give this up, give up my lustful thoughts. I give up my identification with hair and beard. I give up my identification with my skin. I give up my identification with my bones, etc. etc. So, Hindu monastic system, Hindu spiritual system is about giving up. So that you can ultimately give up your individuality. But in other systems, including Buddhism, there's no giving up. You take up some vow so that you can give up certain other things. It's a very interesting thing. I mean, spirituality is such a fascinating thing. Hinduism has scope for everyone. For those who are identified with spirits and ghosts, those who worship trees and those who worship stones, we have place for them too. And those who say that I am Atman, Hinduism has a place for such persons too. Why? A very good example is of a scaffolding. When you are constructing a building or when you want to paint a building, you erect a scaffolding. And with the help of that, you climb up, you do whatever you wanted to do. The work is done, then you remove the scaffold. Scaffolding is no more needed. The goal is to realize that you are Atman. And you create any kind of scaffolding you want, whether that be of duality, whether that be of varnashram, whatever it is. So when people criticize practices of Hindu religion, they don't understand that if you look at those practices from the standpoint of spirituality, they're all meaningless. They're all meaningless. Nothing matters. Rituals do not matter. Mythologies do not matter. The act of worship does not matter. These are secondary details. You can change them anytime you want. Any saint can change them. Not in other religions. In other religions, the very idea of changing something is a sacrilege. Mandukya taunts it a bit and says, those who are scared of that huge, for them these things have been prescribed by the scriptures. Ajate strasatam tesham upalambhat viyanti ye jati dosa na setsyanti dosho api alpo bhavishyati. However, says that if a person is practicing duality, it's okay. It's okay. At least they're being religious. At least they're striving to reach some height. You might have heard of this complaint. You might have heard of this allegation that such and such person is a corrupt person. Such and such person is a lecherous person. Such a so, and yet he goes to the temple, or he's a monk, or this that. Hindu religion says doesn't matter. If he is going to the temple sincerely, today or tomorrow he will change. If a person is practicing dualistic system of beliefs, nothing wrong with it. God will see to it that someday he realizes his mistake and comes on the right path. Unlike other religions which condemns them and swears that they will be going to the hell, Advaita Vedanta doesn't treat them that way. It says, at least they are on the path of spirituality, unlike those who are not. It is better to be a committed dualist than to be a nihilist, than to be an atheist. However, Swami Vivekananda says that it is better to be an atheist than have no faith in the be a believer in God who doesn't have the real belief. What Swamiji meant was that you need to have belief somewhere, some strong conviction. Now, dualists, you will see that I have seen some of these devotees of different sects. They're so committed and their life is so dedicated, so devoted to God. Once I went to Thiruvananthapuram, then it was known as Trivandrum, and there is a temple of Ananta Shayanam, Lord Vishnu, Padmanabha temple. And I've been there only once, and people who are from Kerala, they would know it better. I heard that the priest who prays there is practically locked inside that temple for 12 years. And there was a priest whose daughter was to get married. As a special permission, his daughter was married just outside that gate so that he could see from inside the grill the marriage of his daughter. For 12 years, he was locked because such purity is to be maintained. He cannot eat anything from outside, not even from his home. He cannot meet his wife. He cannot meet his children. What sanctity? Some may think it's madness. No. It is this kind of commitment that religion becomes great. For a non believer, it may be madness. They may think that it's also odd, but no, for them it's perfectly all right. So he says that the all these faults like jati dosh, some of the sin that accrues because of wrong belief, these things are completely extremely minor compared to the great goal that they are pursuing. So it's perfectly all right. Advaita Vedanta is the true religion of Hindu religion. It's a true religion, true philosophy, and that's why Advaita can accommodate all the systems of thought. For us, Lord Shiva is as true as Lord Vishnu. Lord Shiva is as true as Lord Rama, Lord Krishna. They're all God for us because Advaita has place for all. Advaita can accommodate everyone, every system of thought, every person. Those who are non-believers, for them also, they're okay, fine, continue with this. If you continue with your conviction as far as spirituality is concerned, a time will come when you will learn the truth, you will realize the truth. And whether that truth will come from God or it will come from within, it's immaterial, but it will come. It has to come. So that's verse number 43. That sincerity is important. Sincerity is important. Unlike, say, other religions, who say that you will go to hell to make things easy for you, I will cut off your head. No, Advaita will never talk like this. Even the dualists in Hindu religion are fanatic like that. But fanaticism is no religion, it's mental illness. Every fanatic is mentally ill, particularly when his fanaticism is affecting others. Upalambat samachar, it became with upalambat. Upalambat samacharat maya hasti yatochyate. Upalambat samacharat asti vastu tatochyate. When we grasp something and when we make use of it, as was in verse number 42, our mind gets conditioned to think that it's true, it's correct, it's real. But the way a magician conjures up an elephant and then goes on doing certain things with that elephant, well, the magical tricks of India used to be extremely famous. And as per this description, probably there were magicians who could conjure up magical elephants and would make that elephant dance and make that elephant do this, do that. Thus, you find that there is some kind of object, and that object is being used for certain thing. But you also know that it's all magic. Just like that, in the waking state, also there are objects and you make use of it. That doesn't mean that it's real. So, the Gaudapada takes a reverse engineering path and shows that simply because you perceive an object and you make use of it, that doesn't prove its reality. Simply because some persons think of God to be real, God means personal God, say Krishna to be real. No, there is a movement nowadays, Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. They don't even pronounce that correctly. They can say Krishna. And Krishna means Draupadi. Instead of worshipping Lord Krishna, they are worshipping Draupadi. So they go on criticizing every other system. Why? They believe Krishna to be true. Krishna, the personal God. But Gita doesn't talk about Krishna, the personal God. Gita talks about Krishna, the impersonal. What the Upanishads talk about Atman and Brahman, Krishna is that. If Krishna is that, Sri Ramchandra is also that. Krishna, in inclusion to Rama, is no God. Krishna is Brahman. And hence, Shiva is Brahman and Rama is Brahman and Sri Ramakrishna is Brahman. Well, they are all true. So simply because you think that God is true, God is real, and I'm making use of that God for my spiritual growth, that doesn't mean that this is the ultimate reality. This is what this verse says. A very simple argument that upalambat samacharat. Simply because you can perceive it and making use of it, that doesn't mean that it's real. Jati abhasam, chalabhasam, vastu abhasam, tadevsha. See, in Upanishad, in a philosophy like this, someone can be so poetic. Jati abhasam, chalabhasam, vastu abhasam, tathevacha, aja achalam avastutvam vijnanam shantam advayam. Verse number 45 says, whatever you see, something which is, yes, I covered everything, that anything that appears to be born, like here is this pen, it has been manufactured. Anything that has been born and anything that moves, anything that takes up the form of matter, is all pure consciousness. That's what perception is. Abhas. Abhas means there's some kind of grasping. There's some kind of perception of what? Jati abhasam, being born. Chala abhasam, that which moves. And vastu abhasam, that appears as something real, as an object. Gaudapada gives us the conclusion that anything that is born, anything that moves, anything that has a body, that which appears as matter. For example, my body appears as matter. It's all pure consciousness. These things do not have an independent existence. They are not real as an object, but they are real as pure consciousness, as pure Satchidananda, as pure Brahman. So, the example used by Acharya Shankar is Devadatta. Devadatta is a very favorite name of Acharya Shankar, which he uses whenever a name is needed. In philosophy also, Devadatta. Devadatta is a very popular name. So, says that there is Devadatta, who is fair and who is tall. He's born. He moves. And there's an appearance. Does that make Devadatta to be real? No, Devadatta is not real. It's Atman, it's Brahman. When you love someone, know that you're loving Atman. When you hate somebody, know that you are hating Atman. But can you hate yourself? No, you cannot hate yourself. Everybody loves oneself. I love myself, you love myself. Sometimes, figuratively, we say that, oh, I hate myself for having done this. But no, you don't hate yourself. Because you love yourself, and you did something so you feel, oh, I shouldn't have done it. Essentially, you mean to say the kind of personality I am and the love that I have for myself, I shouldn't have done this. Everyone loves themselves. Everyone. Whether it be male, female, child, whatever. Ultimately, you love yourself. There being nothing other than Atman, how can you hate somebody? Well, it's not possible for you to hate somebody. How can you hate somebody? No, you cannot. And that's why you have to learn. You have to learn not to hate anyone, not to hate anything, not to hate any idea, not to dislike any idea. And that's why Advaita is extremely accommodative. Every person is welcome, every idea is welcome, every object is welcome, most welcome. There is no hatred. There is no hatred. There is no exclusion. Exclusion is something alien to Advaita. Exclusion is something alien to Hindu religion. But it accepts that everybody is not ready for the high step. So there has to be scaffolding. How do you take that scaffolding? Through varnashram dharma and duties and this and that. Evam na jayate chittam, evam dharma jasmrita, evam eva vijananto na patanti viparye. In the same way, the mind is also not born. Mind is never subject to birth. Mind is never born. All beings too are free from birth. Nothing is born. Nothing is born. Those who know this do not fall into false knowledge. If you know that no one has been born, if you know that mind has never been born, then you don't land up in false knowledge. Then you realize that Atman alone exists. But such persons are very few. The rest are weak. And because they are weak, for them duality is preached in the scriptures. If you go through the Upanishads and you go through the Vedas, you find that they are talking about the universe being created by God, and yet nothing is created. Yes, duality is for the weak. And verse number 47 onwards is about Alat Shanti. Name of the chapter is Alat Shanti. So we'll take up from verse number 47 in the next talk. Thank you so much.